Now, imagine what will happen to you if you wake up one of these days and you're going to find that the first prime minister of your country was not carrying the name that he should be carrying. He was a Muslim, and that he went on to wear a Hindu name essentially to misguide the population. What if it is that if you happen to know that you have been denied of something like some 15 years of a history to be known to you? What it is that if it is you happen to know that Pakistan was given something like some 3 lakh square kilometers of an area without any exchange of the POW. What if you happen to know that the accession of Kashmir that took place, a lot of anomalies were there, and the Indian people have been manipulated? What if you happen to know that the INA soldiers who were instrumental in granting India a freedom of sorts by revolting against the British, they were, after the Prime Minister went on to, after India went on to become independent rather, then the Prime Minister was not even in a position to give them a complete job, and forfeited any amount of money that they were able to be getting it. What if it is that you know that the most grand monument of India is not Taj Mahal, it is something else? What if you happen to know that the country's entire history and some of those villains who have been real villains of sorts, they have been glorified beyond comparison and glorified beyond comprehension? Now, of course, you are going to be feeling bad. And this is what has exactly necessitated the rewriting, or rather correction, of Indian history. Now we're going to talk about both of these. Why is it that both of these terms are different? Rewriting means that is you are interpreting everything anew. Correcting means some of these corrections that were necessary, some of these corrections that were hidden from the Indian populace. One of the greatest debates raging on in the 21st century of India is that is it ethical to correct Indian history? Now, there are going to be a group of people who are arguing for it. There are some of them who are arguing against it. And some of those people who are arguing against it, they all happen to be elites. All of those people have been brought up in such type of institutions, which so far have been considered to be one of the best institutions, but their logic is completely flimsy. They happen to call themselves Marxist historians. And a good number of them, their credentials are completely questionable of sorts. That is, some of them are funded by the Chinese, some of them are funded by the Islamic countries, some of them are funded by Britain as well, and that raises a good number of questions. While some people who have discovered something new in the last 7 to 10 years of a time, and after having discovered some of these new things, they are aghast at this part. Why is it that some of those components have been hidden from them? And that they say that they must be inserted, they must be taken a look at. Their contention is based on something else, and they say that is Mehrawali's iron pillar is at any point of time much more older than that of the wrongly given name Qutub Minar, because it was not Qutub Minar, it was built by a Hindu king, like that of Lal Killa, which was again built by a Hindu king, that was Tomar, and then it was falsified that it was someone else who built it in the manner that it was built right now. But then this is what exactly they have been talking about. Some of them are collecting evidence, some of them are presenting it, some of them are cross-checking it right now. Some of these things have been completely established. And that is what has necessitated, that is it that Indian history requires to be corrected? That requires to be corrected or not, you can imagine it. Now, why is it that history of a place is going to be important at any point of a time? History is important because history determines your perception. History determines what type of perception that you're going to carry towards your past. It is history that has determined the degree of animosity that exists between India and Pakistan, because for Pakistan it was Jinnah who is the father of nation of sorts. And they can go to call it the father of nation because Pakistan never existed at all at any point of a time. But India existed. In India, it has again been called as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and that itself goes on to become debatable because India is much, 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 much more older than that. History determines your perception. It is if you are made to feel humiliated every time about your history, that you were the one who were conquerors, you were the one who had no worth at all, you were the one people who have been ruled by someone, you are the one people who are important, you are the one people who are the ugliest people in the whole of the world. Of course, you grow up with such type of a notion as well. History instills in you a sense of pride. That is, if you know that your history has been such, then you're going to feel proud about this country. It goes on to help you in nation building as well. History also goes on to help you distinguish yourself. How is it and to which group you're going to belong to, and how is it that you can go to identify yourself. Now, some people inserted deliberately some of these concepts like that of Aryan Dravidian in Indian context, although there was nothing of that sort at all. But then it was a ploy to make the Indian people feel inferior, that there was an Aryan invasion, and Aryan were good looking people and they were very good, and they occupy good number of places, and that Dravidian are going to be, they are different in color and so on so forth. That was, every ploy was to divide Indian people into different forms. The basic form in which Indian history has gone on to emerge has been associated with what we're going to be calling it as Vachya Parampara. This is what we're going to be calling it as Vachya Parampara. Now, Vachya Parampara had been that Indian history has not been written. Most of this Indian history and anything from which we can go to think of learning has been transmitted from generations to generation through speech, not through any type of written text. And that has been Vachya Parampara. It has been storytelling. And India had a reason to believe it as well, because Indian people believed that this was essential and this was very important component, largely on the basis of instilling a sense of imagination among the people. So it was Vachya Parampara. And then it has been important because there has been a chronological error of something 1380 years in dating of Buddha Nirvana. And that to such an extent that is, people are aghast India what happened to almost 1300 years of history in the country. And then you're going to find the demerits and maybe some of the manipulation that have taken place in the Shak era. And then the moment you're going to find that the BC and AD concept has been completely erroneous. Of course, there are scholars who go on to say it so, and they will always keep on saying it so. Then you come to realize that, of course, it has been a necessity to correct Indian history. And there are many issues that go on to concern Indian history. One of this issue in this case is going to be distortion of the interpretation. And when we're going to talk about distortion of interpretation in this case, then we are essentially talking about many aspects. For example, when you're going to pick up an interpretation, some of these things have been interpreted in a completely wrong manner. Take an example. The concept of religion. Western countries equated religion with dharma. Dharma was different in India. Religion is having a completely different notion in that place. In India, there's nothing called as religion. In India, there was no concept of samaj. There was concept of sanyam. Society was also something that was not known in India. Neither was any type of religion, because almost all of these people had this notion of carrying it themselves. That means with so much amount of character that there was never any need to bring them under any specific protocol of a society. And that has been completely wrongly interpreted. What has been wrongly interpreted is also that Indian history has been mythical in nature. For example, all of those characters from which people learned in India, and you can imagine that is, who are the people who are worshipped? It was Lord Sri Ram who is worshipped. He is worshipped. It's not that we're going to talk about Rana Pratap who is worshipped, but of course he has a demigod status in this country. That's largely because of the character that they possess, not for anything else. India, it doesn't want to be worshipping conquerors. It go on to be worshipping people who had a very strong sense of a character. So a lot of things have been distorted, at least the interpretation has been distorted. There had a lot of false facts which have been inserted into it, and the facts have been used for the purpose of changing the perception of the people, particularly in terms of chronology. Take an example. We are going to be talking about chronology. The Shak era, that is one that we're going to be following. That is completely wrong. And it's only that when you realize it's wrong, then you come to realize why it is so. Maybe that is it was not informed. The information was not complete with the people. But now, when the information is given, why is it not that they are taking it in that spirit? That is one. Second is pick up the case of another chronological distortion. Ramayana and Mahabharata, both of them took place, which was considered to be mythical. Mythical, that means something that was false. Now, if that was false, then Ramayana and Mahabharata, both of them went on to follow Vedic period. And in Ramayana and Mahabharata, both of them, there was an indication of the position of the stars and the stellar position and all those graha and nakshatra. That means astronomy was also known at that point of time, and the date was also known. And how is it that where was Sri Lanka? What was the distance? Through how many territories one can go on to go through these regions? Everything was well known. So people have questioned the historicity of Ramayana Mahabharata, both of them. And if it has been after 5000 BC, then when was the Vedic period? Then that goes on to become a big question. Other issue has been 1300 years of history has been deleted, and there is no trace of it. Now, it was ostensibly deleted essentially to introduce the concept of BC, before Christ, so that the Western countries can go on to take a pride in the fact that everything was associated with Christ, and that there were a good number of cities that came up much before what Indians happen to know that, and so on and so forth. History and respectable historical characters were treated as mythical, as we have talked about. That is, Lord Shri Ram was treated as a mythical. It is not. Lord Shiva has been treated as mythical. It is again not. Right? And if you can go on to pick up some of these aspects, 15,000 years back was the Vedic period that has been completely demolished. And there was a civilization, there were civilizations existing much before that of Indus Valley civilization. Now, the very notion that India's history begins from Indus Valley civilization itself is not correct, because it goes on to go back to 75,000 years till Troba eruption. We are talking about that Troba eruption when there was a huge volcanic activity at that point of a time. And that within the volcanic activity buried were a good number of villages which show that they had known how to manufacture wheels, how to have a kitchen, how to have a settled village life, how to have maybe a settled urban life as well. Now, these were some of the things that were very well known to the people at that point of a time. Then there was a lot of space that was given to the Mughal history, and we are talking about Mughal history. That is, if you have grown up studying history, you will go to find that people who are so innocuous, they have completely worthless characters, completely worthless, like Lodhi. So a garden has been made, and within the Lodhi garden, Ashoka relics have been there. Can you imagine this distortion? Within the garden of Lodhi lies Ashoka's relics and his some of his sermons as well in that place. Within the Mehrauli iron pillar lies, it is not within Mehrauli iron pillar, it is within Qutub Minar enclave that lies Mehrauli iron pillar. Now, that is only falsifying Mughal history in this case. And to talk about it, Aurangzeb has been painted as one of these great philanthropists, and there was a road that was named after him in India, and that itself is going to be an insult. And there is a station also given in the name of a person who burnt the library of Nalanda, and that was Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now, that is essentially with a purpose to insult Indian people, and that still exists. And of course, this has necessitated rewriting and correcting of Indian history. Then there have been lopsided values without any reason to geographical aspects, with the bias towards branding of Taj Mahal. You can understand it when you take a look at some of these monuments of the so-called Mughal period, you're going to find that at no point of time, nowhere is it that the Mughals were very good builders. And it's not that they were building many good things as well. There are umpteen examples, umpteen, not one, not two, not three, not four, not 100, even more than that, that there was a temple, and the temple had its inscriptions. It has a completely Indian architecture and artifacts as well. And then someone has built a dome over it. Now that looks completely out of place. Now this has not necessitated, but then this has prompted some people to load the whole of history with a Mughal bias, with a Muslim bias in history also. Anyone who takes a look at Taj Mahal and then in Hampi, anyone can go to know that is, there is absolutely no comparison in the grandeur of both of them. But then the branding has been completely different in this case. Then there have been a number of facts that have been hidden deliberately. For example, ancient Indian contribution to science was completely ignored. Now you can imagine that. That is, some of these contributions, like Indian people used to be the greatest astronomers that the world has known. They were also the first surgeons in the world. We are going to be talking about Shushruta. You are going to find it in Melbourne that there is a statue of Shushruta, that is the first surgeon that the world has known, kept in place. Now, why is it not in India? Because in India, the moment you're going to be doing it so, then there will be a lot of people, of course, the people who make up almost 20% of the population, they will start shouting their God's name and say that is people should be killed, and all the Indians are kafirs of sorts in this case. So a lot of these things have been ignored, and you can go to take a look at it. This has been like father of astronomy, Aryabhat, but then you're going to find the work of Kepler. Varaha Mihir's name is going to be completely absent. Bhaskaracharya, he talked about gravity, that is going to be missing. On astrology, Varaha Mihir has been there. Then surgery, Chark and Shushruta, both have been there. Anatomy, it has been Patanjali and Yoga Sutra. The whole of the world is hooked on to yoga right now. You'll also going to understand that there was one person who was the father of economics, Chanakya, but then who has been talked about, Adam Smith in this case. There were some people who were father of atomic theory, Rishi Kannad, and that Kannad Sutra had been there, and that his name is completely missing. There were people like father of architecture, Vishwakarma, his name is completely missing. Father of aerodynamics, Mayasura, his name is missing. Father of medicine, and any one of them who were the first people, you're going to find that is some of these people who were distinguishing in some of these things like that of weaponry, their name is also going to be missing. So all of these aspects have been completely missing with respect to that of India. And when we're going to say that these things are missed, then ancient Indian contribution to sciences have been completely ignored. Pick up something else as well. Pick up the case of Lalitaditya and Samudragupta. The greatest ruler, the British also recognize it, the Western media also recognize it. The greatest ruler to have ruled the whole of the world at any point of time was Samudragupta. His conquests were much more stronger than Alexander or Napoleon. But then they have not been mentioned in Indian history at all. Pick up the case of Lalitaditya. Lalitaditya was the one person who was an empire extended all the way to Central Asia. All of these Central Asian countries that you know it, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, even the Xinjiang region, the whole of Iran, whole of Persia region that you go to know it, that was under Lalitaditya. He was one of the rulers ruling from Kashmir. Pick up the case of Mahendravarman. Now, Raja Mahendravarman was one of those persons who defeated the Dutch in when they came to colonize India. And they defeated the Dutch, and they defeated to such an extent that the Dutch were not able to revive themselves for next 100 years, and even now not as well. It was only with the decline of the Dutch that the British emperor picked it up. But then Raja Mahendravarman from Kerala was not there in that case. Then pick up the case of Ahom. When you're going to pick up the case of Ahom, and when you talk about it, what you know is that Ahoms were the one who defeated the Mughals not once, not twice, not thrice. Defeated them for no less than something like some 17 times all in all. And because they were defeated 17 times, why is it that this has been completely absent Why is it that this has been completely hidden in this case? Pick up the case of a Qutub Minar iron pillar. We talked about it, that is a Mehrauli iron pillar is one of those priceless features of engineering which even the modern world goes on to marvel on. And that lies within the premises of Qutub Minar. Qutub Minar, that is a Muslim name that has been given. But then when you take a look at Qutub Minar and you're going to find the small artifacts and architecture, you're going to find all of this architecture has been associated with ancient Indian architecture of the kings, of the queens and some of these dynasties. It is only the minarets that the Mughals have built and they kept over it. That has been one of these factors in this case, which has been a part of it. Now, that's not the only one. There have been a lot of tales of valor which have never been brought to the forefront. Now, take the case of Narasimha Deo. Narasimha Deo was from Odisha and he was an Odishan king and who defeated the Turkish, and they were not able to have their foothold in India at all. Then you pick up the case of Durgadas Rathore. He protected Jodhpur prince from Aurangzeb, and Aurangzeb was never able to find himself to that place. That is completely missing. Suhal Dev was defeated the Ghaznavi and Salar Masud, both of them, and he killed Salar Masud. That was his general, all in all. That is, his name is completely absent. Banda Singh, he was a Sikh general and he led 5 battles to victory against the Mughals. His name is completely missing. And not only that, if we can go to pick up no less than something like 100 characters in Indian history whose tales of valor have never been brought to the forefront at all. So that raises a lot of a question. Why is it that they have been hidden all in this case? So that has been there. And then India went on to obtain the so-called independence. We're going to call it so-called independence because Indians in mind were always independent. It was only then, it was after 1947 that Indians started thinking themselves that they have to follow everything which the British had laid out to be. And some of these things, like they have to, in order to call themselves developed, they have to build dams. In order to be developed in agriculture, they have to practice the similar type of agriculture that the British preached. Now, in order to live a life, they have to make a concrete building, which the British again preached. So, by and large, this concept of entire independence has been lopsided in this case. Now, at that point of a time, Gandhi was called as the father of a nation. Now, how is it that Gandhi can be father of nation when nation existed much before that of Gandhi, much before that? So, it has been interpreted completely in a wrong manner, right? That is, India is not only as old as 1947, India is much more older. If you can go to pick up the trace, it goes on to go all the way to 75,000 years of history in this case. Of course, 15,000 when you go on to be talking about the Vedic age, and no less than 5,673 BC when Lord Ram was born in the country. Pick up the case of the notion of Independence Day in India itself. That is it that India got independence on that day, or is it that India's territory, half of territory was usurped by an enemy country, or is it that India got itself divided and losing itself a good number of people, and it went on to buy a strife that still is ripe in the country? This is what we call independence as. It is not independence, but then it was thrust on the people, interpreted, reinterpreted, and completely misinterpreted in this form. That has been another case associated with it. So modern Indian history's interpretation has been also leading to a lot of questions in this case, and there have been a lot of hidden information as well. When you're going to read more about Chauri Chaura, you're going to find that there have been a lot of information that have been hidden in this case. You will go to talk about the INA revolt 1946. You will again going to find that a lot of information is again hidden in this case. When you're going to talk about Mopla rebellion, you're going to find that a lot of information has been deliberately withheld in this case. There was absolutely no reason for the Muslims to have massacred the entire of the Hindu population, and for no rhyme or reason there was nothing like any strife or nothing like any type of a discord at all, because they felt they were not in a good mood. They massacred it completely, mercilessly to such an extent that they spun the small children with their spear and they used it as almost like a post of sorts in this case. If you can go on to pick up the case of India, you'll go to find that all of these things have been done with a very nefarious design. And when we're going to be talking about a nefarious design, you come to know of it. And what you come to know of it is, you come to know of the fact that for 75 years of sorts, there had been Muslim education ministers. And of course, Indians had a lot of faith and they never considered a difference between Hindu and Muslim. But then what they did was that they kept on changing the syllabus, kept on changing, so much so that their aim and intention was that Indians do not go to learn from the mistakes that they made in history. For example, one of the mistakes that Indian should have learned from history was that never to trust the Islamic invaders. Never ever to trust the Islamic invaders, even if it is that they are settled in India. This is largely because they are not to be trusted at all. There was a second one as well, that is Indians were always made to feel inferior. That is the native people of it. Indians who have been there, the Hindu population, they are always made to feel inferior. And they said that, see, Mughals robbed you, Mughals raped you, Mughals were the one who pulverized you, Mughals were the one who were able to take your territory, Mughals have ruled you for 1001 years, and they killed no less than 40 million people in this case. Now, this is how exactly they were made to feel inferior of sorts, and this was inserted in the history. Then there were interpretations and narrative, to a narrative correction that was to make it objective. That is, interpretation of it was made completely different. Completely different in the sense that is that there were narratives that were set up, and that narrative was essentially to unguard the Indian people. Normally, let's say you happen to know someone who is not of a good intention, he is not having good intention, and you can go to learn from the past. Now, that is what exactly Indians were prevented from doing in this case. This history was not made objective, not at all objective at all. That's why a lot of things were inserted in it, which was not required to be inserted at all, and there were a lot of things that were deleted, which was not to be deleted at all. Now, the concept is that it is completely ethical, because unless it is going to be done, there is no way that there will be a sense of a justice that will going to prevail with respect to that of India's education. That is, Indians have a right to know what exactly was their history, what was their ancestry, whether it was good or bad, whatever it was. Maybe even if they made a mistake, they must go on to know that at all. Who ruled them, and to what extent? Is it that they ruled with some degree of valor, or is it that that was an evil design, or is it by cheating, or by whatever means possible? So, what we say is that the correction is required, not exactly that we say rewriting. Now, these words will be very significant. A correction is required, not exactly as rewriting. So, it's completely ethical, because a country's population, in order to be a nation, must go on to know its correct history, not a history that is filled with agenda, not a history that is filled with a narrative, not a history that is its intent is to make the Indians feel themselves inferior.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.